We walked across the same graduation stage that afternoon, matching gowns brushing against the polished floor, tassels swaying in the same spring breeze. Same ceremony, same applause, same proud photos posed for strangers. But behind my smile, something colder pulsed under my ribs. Because everyone in that stadium thought my parents had supported both their daughters equally. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know that my sister Lily had every cent of her tuition paid for without lifting a finger, while I, Liana Carter, worked night shifts for 4 years straight just to stay enrolled. The unfairness wasn't new. It was stitched into my childhood like a pattern no one bothered to hide. In every family photo, Mom's hand always rested on Lily's shoulder, never mine. Dad's eyes brightened when she spoke, dimmed when I did. We were twins, born 4 minutes apart, yet treated like we were born worlds apart. I still remember being 7 years old, tripping on the pavement and scraping my knee bloody. Mom handed me a napkin without looking up and said, "You're tough, Liana. You don't need fussing." But when Lily sneezed, the world stopped. She was tucked into blankets, forehead kissed, soup stirred like she was made of glass. Once you've lived long enough in that imbalance, your heart learns to stop expecting softness. Through middle school and high school, the pattern sharpened. Lily got a new bike one birthday. I got her old one, spray-painted metallic silver like the new color would trick me into gratitude. When she forgot homework, Mom wrote excuses. When I forgot mine, I was lectured about discipline and setting a good example. Little cuts. Quiet cuts. Enough of them and you stop bleeding, you just harden. When senior year came around, we both applied to the same accounting program. When we both got in, we jumped in the kitchen like kids, screaming with excitement. For a moment, I thought maybe things would finally feel equal. But that night, coming down the stairs, I heard Mom's voice drifting from the living room. "Of course we'll cover Lily's tuition," she said, smooth, certain. "Liana's clever. She'll figure it out. She always does. She doesn't need what Lily needs." Dad agreed. They said it like they were praising me, but it sounded like a life sentence. I stood there gripping the railing until the wood pressed into my palm. I didn't confront them. I'd learned by then that asking for fairness only made me look ungrateful. So I packed quietly that August, took my acceptance letter, and promised myself one thing. They would never hear desperation in my voice again. College was survival. Lily got a bright, pretty dorm room on campus. I moved into a tiny off-campus unit where the heating pipes groaned like they were complaining about me too. Her allowance came every week. Mine was a punch-in card at the library and a cleaning shift afterward. On Fridays, she went to parties. I went to scrub study desks and refill printer paper. Sometimes I'd cross paths with her on campus. She always looked polished, refreshed, floating through life with the kind of ease money buys. Once she passed me near the dining hall, looked at my tired eyes, and said, "Maybe you should time manage better, Liana." I smiled and nodded even though the words stung more than she knew. I worked twice as hard to get half as far, but that was invisible to her. Why would she question a world built to hand her everything? I didn't tell anyone how exhausted I was. I just kept walking, working, pushing. Every sacrifice I made was building towards something only I could see, a future with my name on it, not theirs. The breaking point came quietly. Tuition was due and I was short. I didn't want money. Just a loan until my next paycheck. I called home. Mom answered, laughter and TV noise behind her. "Mom," I said gently. "I'm a little short on tuition this semester. I was wondering if you and Dad could help just this once. I'll pay it back." There was a silence long enough to make my throat tighten. Then she exhaled. "Liana, we already paid for Lily. She deserved it. But you didn't." Those words didn't hurt. They scorched. Not because they were new, but because they were said so casually, like a truth she'd rehearsed. I remember staring at the blank wall in my apartment thinking, I didn't deserve it. Me, the girl who worked 3 jobs, who never caused trouble, who bent herself into knots trying to be enough. "You're strong," she added mildly. "You'll figure it out. You always do." And she hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, phone limpin'. My hand, heartbeat steady like the world had finally stopped pretending. I looked at myself in the window's reflection. My eyes weren't broken. They were awake. That night, I walked into the library early. I wiped down tables, organized books, and made a promise to myself under the hum of fluorescent lights. If they believed I didn't deserve their help, fine. I'd prove I didn't need it. I would build a life so solid they'd have no place in it unless I chose to let them back. By the time sunrise hit the third-floor windows, I had mapped out scholarships, internships, any opportunity one could reach. I wasn't waiting for anyone to choose me. I was choosing myself. And that was the beginning of everything they never saw coming. I started waking up before dawn, long before the campus stirred. The library didn't open until 7, but I'd sit outside on the concrete steps with a thermos of cheap coffee and a stack of financial reporting textbooks I could barely afford. The quiet hours became my training ground. No comparisons, no shadows, no Lily laughing with friends across the quad. Just me, the cold air, and a future I was determined to carve out with my own hands. I studied with a kind of hunger I hadn't felt before. Every formula, every chart, every case study felt like a brick I was laying in a foundation no one could take credit for. Exhaustion didn't scare me anymore. I'd lived with heavier things that hurt worse than tired eyes. It was around this time that Professor Alan Whitford noticed me. He taught international financial reporting standards, the kind of class half the students dropped when they realized it wasn't as glamorous as they hoped. I didn't drop it. I sat in the front row, scribbling notes so fast my hand cramped. One afternoon after class, he stopped me in the hallway. "You seem to grasp this material well," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Where did you study before coming here?" "Nowhere special," I told him. "I just read a lot." He smiled, the kind of smile that held real weight. "That's rare. I'm looking for an assistant. Someone organized, dependable. Would you be interested?" My first instinct was to say no. I already worked nights and barely slept. But then I heard my mother's voice in my head, cold and dismissive. "You'll figure it out. You always do." And something inside me shifted. "Yes," I said. "I'm interested." Working for Professor Whitford changed everything. He treated me like a colleague, not an inconvenience. He let me help grade quizzes, refine spreadsheets, even correct parts of his lecture slides when I caught errors. No one had ever trusted me with anything academic before. He did. "You've got discipline," he told me once, glancing at my notes. "Keep going. It'll open doors." I didn't understand how literal those words were until his email arrived. Subject: Benjamin Ford National Scholarship nomination. I clicked on it slowly, half expecting it to be a mistake. But the seal in the corner was real. The message was real. And the line that stole the air from my lungs was real too. "Your professor has nominated you for the national award based on exceptional academic resilience and independent achievement." My fingers trembled. I stared at the screen for a long time, barely breathing. Professor Whitford hadn't said a word. He just quietly believed in me, something my own parents had never done. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell Lily. I'd learned that my wins were safest when kept in silence. Every evening after work, I drafted essays, built financial models for the application, and begged the library printer not to jam at the worst possible moment. Some nights I felt the old ache return, my mother's words circling my mind, "She deserved it. But you didn't." I'd whisper back into the empty dorm room, "You're wrong." 3 months later, the results came. I sat on my bed, letter trembling in my hands, reading the words again and again. "Congratulations, Liana Carter. You are one of 5 national recipients." I didn't scream. I didn't jump. I just let out a slow breath that felt like it had been trapped inside me since childhood. I'd done it. No loans. No favors. No shortcuts. Just me. Later that evening, out of habit more than hope, I called home. "Mom," I said, voice steady. "I won a national scholarship. It's really big." Her response was a lukewarm, "That's nice, dear. Lily got invited to her professor's garden party today." She's very excited. I nodded even though she couldn't see it. That's great for her. When I hung up, something inside me settled. I didn't feel small anymore. I didn't feel hungry for their approval. I was done chasing a love that had conditions. The awards ceremony was 2 weeks away. They encouraged recipients to bring their families. I hesitated, but then I thought, why not? Let them see what not deserving looks like when it succeeds anyway. The morning of the ceremony felt borrowed from spring. Bright sky. Soft breeze. A day designed for new beginnings. I arrived early, holding the invitation so tightly the corner bent into my palm. The hall was grand, draped in blue and gold banners that shimmered every time the air shifted. Students filed in, families whispering in anticipation. Then the doors opened for guests, and there they were. My mother, Diane, pearl earrings catching the light. My father, Richard, straight-backed, eyes searching. And Lily, wearing a pale blue dress and carrying her camera like she was about to capture a moment she assumed would belong to her. I hadn't told them what the award really was. A part of me wanted to see their faces when they realized. A smaller part still hoped they might feel proud. We exchanged a small wave. Mom mouthed, "You look beautiful." I smiled politely and turned away. The ceremony began. Names called. Applause rising, falling. My heart thudding like a drum under my ribs. Then I heard mine. The next recipient, the host said, is a student who worked nights throughout her entire degree without financial support from her family. A model of resilience, independence, and academic excellence. Please welcome Liana Carter. The hall erupted. But the silence behind me, the sharp, stunned silence, was louder. For a moment, I couldn't move. The words, without financial support from her family, echoed through giant speakers, bouncing across the hall, settling like dust on every face, especially the 3 sitting in the front row. Mom's smile vanished, her eyes blinking rapidly like she'd misheard. Dad stiffened, jaw tightening. Lily's hand, the one holding her camera, dropped slightly, the lens lowering as if the truth had suddenly become too heavy to document. I stood anyway, feet steady on the polished floor, and walked toward the stage. Each step felt like reclaiming years of being overlooked. I didn't feel nervous, I felt right. Seen. Whole. The dean handed me the award, shaking my hand with warmth that felt worlds away from the hollow praise I'd grown up with. "Congratulations, Ms. Carter," he said. "You earned this." And for the first time in my life, I believed those words fully. When I turned toward the audience, I saw everything clearly. My family looked small. Not physically, but in presence. Like people who suddenly realized the story they'd curated for years didn't match the one unfolding in front of them. The ceremony ended in applause and music, but my family didn't move. They waited, unsure, approach or retreat, praise or panic. I took my time. I talked to professors, recruiters, strangers who were genuinely excited for me. When I finally walked toward them, Mom was the first to speak. "Liana, honey, we had no idea it was such a big event," she said, voice sweet but trembling around the edges. "I know," I said gently. "You wouldn't have come otherwise." Her smile cracked. "Don't say that. It's true though. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was simply done carrying their denial like some family heirloom." Dad cleared his throat. "We always thought you were so capable. We didn't want to hold you back." "By ignoring me?" I asked. "By confusing independence with not needing love?" He didn't answer. He just looked past me, toward the stage, as if searching for a version of me he still understood. Lily shifted her purse nervously. She looked younger somehow, smaller, like someone who'd been shielded from the truth her whole life. "Liana," she said softly. "I didn't know. I thought you got help too." "I didn't want to, you didn't want to see it," I finished for her. She nodded, eyes shining with something that might have been guilt. "You don't owe me an apology," I said. "I don't need that anymore. I just wanted you all to see what I built. Without you." My mother reached out like she wanted to touch my arm, to comfort or claim, I wasn't sure. I stepped back gently. Not punishment. Just space. The space I had earned. Before any of them could speak again, someone tapped my shoulder. "Ms. Carter?" a woman asked. "Representatives from Hartwell and Morgan would like to meet you." I smiled. Of course. I turned back to my family one last time. This time, it was them watching me walk away. The recruiter's table was surrounded by polished wood, glass windows, and people who spoke to me like my presence mattered. They complimented my proposal, my academics, my work ethic. Then, without hesitation, they offered me a position at their New York office. A starting salary so generous it almost felt unreal. I accepted the next morning. That evening, as the reception buzzed around me, I stepped outside for fresh air. The warm breeze brushed over my skin. My phone buzzed, a message from Mom. "We're proud of you. Let's talk later." Okay. I typed, deleted, then typed again. "Thank you. I'm busy right now." Inside, the music rose. When I looked back through the window, they were gone. For the first time, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free. I walked down the stone steps and into the quiet evening, awards still in hand, the metal cool against my palm, steadying, grounding. Every step felt like walking out of who I had been forced to be and into who I'd chosen to become. That night, I didn't go to the family hotel. I walked the city until the lights blurred and the air felt clean. When I reached my dorm, I placed the award next to my scholarship letter and let myself breathe. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing anything. I'd already arrived. The next morning, an email from Hartwell and Morgan waited. "Offer accepted. Welcome to the New York office." I stared at the words, then laughed out loud, a sound full and real. Later, my phone buzzed again. "Mom. Come home this weekend. We'll celebrate properly." I typed slowly, each word a decision. "Maybe another time. I've got packing to do." Outside my window, students were taking graduation photos with their families, laughing, hugging, wiping tears. I watched quietly. It didn't hurt anymore. It didn't sting. It felt like space. Room to breathe. Room to grow. Before leaving for New York, I boxed up a copy of my award letter and mailed it to my parents' home. No note. No explanation. Just proof. The train ride out of the city was long and quiet. The skyline shrank behind me, and for once, the distance didn't feel like loss. It felt like oxygen. The first night in New York, I stood on the tiny balcony of my apartment, the city buzzing with endless noise and endless chances. Lights flickered below me like 1,000 tiny affirmations. I thought about my mother's voice one last time. "She deserved it, but you didn't." I smiled to myself, slow and sure. Maybe she was right. I didn't deserve it. I earned it.